minus $40. That is your balance. Not low, negative. The account is in the red. A subscription you forgot about charged you on the wrong morning. The paycheck was 1 day late, so the account went under. And the bank charged you $35 just to tell you it did. $35 to inform you that you had no money. You move money around that night, from one account to another, watching the numbers, doing the small, frightened math. You feel small, like the debt is a hand on the back of your neck, like it owns you. It does. Right now, it does. But here's the strange part, the part nobody tells you. Somewhere up the ladder, the exact same thing, made larger, flips. The borrower stops being afraid. The bank starts. The phone that rings to take from you starts ringing to beg. Owe the bank a little, and the debt owns you. Owe the bank enough, and you own the bank. And you cannot know yet where on that ladder the fear changes hands. This is the ladder, 7 rungs. We climb every one. At each rung, only one question changes. Who is afraid of whom? Level 1, the overdraft. You have a checking account with a balance of negative $40. You stock shelves at a grocery store. You stare at the balance on your phone in the break room. The fluorescent light buzzes over a vending machine you cannot afford to use. You feel a specific heat in your face, the heat of owing money to something that does not know your name. You call the bank. You wait on hold. 19 minutes. Hold music loops. A voice that is not quite a person tells you the fee is final. You ask if there is anything they can do. There is not. And you say thank you to the thing taking from you. You learned that young, to be polite to whatever holds the money, to smooth your voice, to not make trouble. The trouble was never going to land on them. Here's the truth about level 1. The bank is not angry at you. The bank is not even watching you. To them, you are a line of code that triggered a fee. The fee is the whole relationship. Nobody at that bank will think about you for 1 second of their life. You will think about them all night. That asymmetry is the entire shape of the bottom. The worry runs one direction, toward them. You are not a borrower here. You are a fee the system collects on its way to bigger things. And the phone, your phone, glowing with the negative number, only ever brings bad news, in one direction. Level 2, the credit card. You are older now. You have $4,000 on a card. The rate is 24%. A laptop, a flight to a wedding, 3 months of groceries. One night you do not fully remember. This is the level where the bank starts to like you, not as a person, as a yield. The bank does not want you to pay this off. The bank wants the minimum, $26 a month, against a balance that grows by $87 a month in interest. They ran the math on 10 million people just like you. The math says you are most profitable while drowning slowly. You do the late-night math. You lie in the dark. A streetlight comes through a sheet you tacked over the window because you never bought a curtain. You add it up. Pay the minimum, and you will carry that one night for years. The ceiling presses down. You feel like the smallest number in a system the size of a country. Then the phone rings. It is the bank, an automated voice, offering you a balance transfer. 0% for 15 months. After that, 26%. They are not calling to help. They are calling because you are profitable. They would like to keep it that way. You are not a customer at level 2. You are a revenue stream. The bank is gently protecting you from yourself. This is the bottom of the ladder. This is the part that breaks people. Not with a single blow, with a slow drip. A fee here, a minimum there, years of it. Nobody escapes it by feeling clever. And right here, at the very bottom, you meet the man who never got on the ladder at all. His name is Daniel. You grew up 4 houses apart. He is the most careful person you have ever known. While you do the late-night math, Daniel has 0 debt. No card, no loan. He pays cash for a 14-year-old Corolla. He rents a room. He saves 11% of a modest paycheck. He sleeps, you imagine, like a man with nothing chasing him. You envy Daniel for years. Hold on to him. He comes back. Level 3, the car loan. You take out $29,000 on a used SUV. The job is 40 minutes away now. The Corolla life is not a life you chose. This is where the debt gets teeth. For the first time, the thing you owe is attached to a thing they can take. You do not own the SUV. The bank owns it. You are renting your own car back, one payment at a time. Miss enough of them, and a man you will never meet drives to your street before dawn, and the car is simply gone. You feel this one in your body. You feel it every time the engine makes a sound it did not make yesterday. You glance back at the car twice, the way you glance at something borrowed. You check the loan balance like checking a wound to see if it healed. It has. By $40 of principal against a payment that is mostly interest. You do not know it yet. This is the last level where the bank can take the thing and walk away. You are closer to the flip than you think. You cannot see it from here. The phone rings. The bank again. This time a real person. A polite young woman in a call center. Your payment is 4 days late. She is kind. She is also reading a script. A script that ends, if this goes badly enough, with that car gone from your street. You are not afraid of her. You are afraid of the institution standing behind her. The thing with no voice. The thing that sends the man before dawn. That night you sleep badly. You hear every engine on the street. You wonder which one is coming for the car. None of them are. Not yet. But you have learned the new fear. The fear of a thing being taken. You are not a borrower at level 3. You are a borrower the bank can repossess. And you both know it. Level 4. The mortgage. You and your partner buy a house. $340,000. 30 years. The number is so large it stops being frightening. It becomes abstract. A phone number. A thing you owe in a size you cannot picture as money anymore. Something strange happens at level 4. For the first time, the bank wants this to work as much as you do. They underwrote you. They sent an appraiser. They have a lien on a real house on a real street. A foreclosed house sitting empty is a loss on someone's report. The bank is now your partner, in a small, unromantic way. They are betting on you. They need your 30 years of payments more than any single one. You notice it in the language. The phone rings. It is not a collection script anymore. It is a relationship manager, asking if you have considered refinancing, asking about a home equity line, calling you by your first name, calling, for the first time in your life, to offer you more, not to take something away. Then here is the number, the one that breaks something. You sit down one night. You calculate what you will pay over 30 years. The principal is $340,000. The total you will hand the bank by the end is over $700,000. You will pay for this house nearly twice. The difference is just the rent you pay the bank for the privilege of owing them. You feel that number land under your ribs. That is a second house. That is your child's whole education, a wedding, a decade of vacations. Gone, vaporized into interest. And the worst part is this is the good deal. This is the level everyone tells you to want. But notice what the number really means. You have grown large enough that the bank profits from your survival. They do not want you to fail. They built the whole structure so the most valuable thing you can do is stay alive and keep paying. You are not a customer at level 4. You are an asset the bank carries on its books and quietly roots for. Level 5. The business loan. You borrow $400,000 to open a second location of the thing you built, the thing that finally worked. You sign a personal guarantee. The debt is yours, and the company's, and your house's, all at once. This is the level where the fear becomes mutual. The bank put real money into a thing with no SUV to seize, no house to appraise, just your judgment, a lease, and a forecast. If the business fails, they lose $400,000 they cannot drive away in the night. They have skin in your skin now. So the phone changes again. It rings, and it is your banker, a man named Raymond. He took you to lunch at a place with cloth napkins. He asks how the second location is performing. He laughs a little too quickly at the thing you said that was not quite a joke. He is nervous and trying to hide it. His name is on the loan committee memo. Your numbers are his numbers now. When you call Raymond, he picks up before the second ring. When Raymond calls you, he is hoping you sound confident. You can hear him listening for it. You notice something on a Tuesday. You are no longer afraid of the bank the way you were. The The bank is, very slightly, afraid of you. $400,000 of fear, sitting on Raymond's side of the table now, where it used to sit entirely on yours. You are not a borrower at level 5. You are a borrower the bank needs to succeed, because your failure is their loss too. Level 6, corporate leverage. The company is large now. You borrow $40 million to acquire a competitor. 3 banks split the loan. No single one wants the whole exposure to you. Look at what just happened. The banks are managing their fear of you by sharing you. The way you would split a risk too big to hold alone. $40 million is no longer a thing you owe. It is a thing they are jointly responsible for. On their balance sheets, in their stress tests, in conversations between vice presidents about whether the exposure to your company is getting too concentrated. The phone rings constantly now, and it is always them. Relationship bankers from 4 institutions, each wanting more of your business, each terrified the others get the next deal. You do not chase capital at level 6. Capital chases you. It calls you. It takes you to dinner. It sends you gifts at the holidays, because you are $40 million of someone's loan book, and your health is their bonus. You are not a borrower at level 6. You are a position the bank cannot afford to lose. Level 7. Too big to fail. The enterprise now carries over $1 billion in debt across a dozen lenders, 2 bond issuances, an ecosystem of suppliers, employees, pension funds, small towns whose payrolls run through your accounts. At $1 billion, you have left the category of borrower entirely. You are no longer a customer of the system. You are part of the system. If you go down, you do not go down alone. You take banks with you. You take a bond market with you. You take, in a real and traceable way, other people's retirements with you. And so the phone, the same phone that once delivered a $35 overdraft fee to a kid in a grocery break room, it rings now with the lender on the other end, asking, carefully, gently, almost tenderly, what they can do to help you stay solvent. They will restructure, they will extend, they will forgive a portion, quietly, because $1 billion owed and unpaid is a wound in their own body. A bank does not amputate its own arm to teach a borrower a lesson. They wait on hold for you now, if that is what it takes. The overdraft kid waited on hold for them. The man at level 7 is the one they wait for. It is the same phone. It is, in a strange way, the same fear, the same dread of a number going the wrong way. It just changed sides of the table. And it changed sides at a threshold nobody ever pointed to. Somewhere between the car they could repossess and the company they could not afford to lose. The overdraft kid feared the phone. The man at level 7 is feared by the phone. Owe $1 million and you cannot sleep. Owe $1 billion and the people who lent it cannot sleep. You are not a borrower at level 7. You are the thing the borrowers feared, and the lenders fear you the way you once feared a $35 fee. Now think about Daniel. Daniel, 4 houses down, who never got on the ladder. Daniel is older now too. He still has 0 debt, no card, no mortgage, no loan, no leverage. He paid cash for everything his whole life. He owns a paid-off house and a paid-off truck and a modest account. And he sleeps fine. And he is small. He was always going to be small. He spent his whole life afraid of the very tool that, used at scale, turns the fear around. Daniel never owed enough to matter. So he never mattered. The bank that would not think about him for 1 second still does not. It never will. He is safe. He was always safe. And safe, it turns out, has a ceiling. The ceiling is exactly as high as the amount you were too afraid to owe. You used to envy him. The sleep, the calm, the truck that nobody could take. You do not envy him anymore. You are not sure he was wrong. You are only sure he was small. He stayed at the bottom of the ladder because the bottom felt safe. And it was. It just had a floor he never left. Here is the whole ladder in one breath. At the bottom, the phone calls you. The call is a fee, a threat, a car gone in the night. At the top, you call the phone, and the phone calls you back. And it calls you sir, and it asks how it can help. The debt never changed. Only the size changed. And the size is the only thing the fear was ever measuring. Somewhere right now, someone is staring at a negative balance, afraid of the phone. They moved money around last night to cover it. They think the debt owns them. They do not know yet that the same debt, larger, will set them free. They will learn. They always do. Their balance is minus $40. The phone is in their hand. It always starts there. It always will. The phone keeps ringing. It just changes who picks up. Owe a little, and you spend your life working for the bank. Owe enough, and the bank spends its life working for you.